Welcome to Voices of Homelessness.
Produced by the National Coalition for the Homeless. The National Coalition for the Homeless is the oldest advocacy organization in the nation that works with and on behalf of people experiencing homelessness. Our goal for this program, the Voices of Homelessness podcast, is to break down some of the stereotypes associated with people experiencing homelessness. It is our hope that through their voices, you will be able to hear resilience, creativity, and courage. And that by doing so, our elected officials on the state, local, and national level will start to affect the change that is truly necessary to end homelessness in the richest country in the history of the world. So join us tonight, and we will do our best to bring to you very amazing and interesting stories with the hope that at the end of the day, we provide the fuel, the energy, and the understanding for us to bring America home and bring America home now. So thank you. I want to thank our guest, Connie Jean Conklin and Alexis Kramer. Welcome to Voices of Homelessness, and we thank you for being here. And we want to start with your stories. So we want to do a few minutes on, what happened, how'd you get here, and what's going on in your life today. So we'll start with Alexis. Alexis, who's joining us in her car today as she's on her way to do important things to resolve the issues that she's facing. So Alexis, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know how very hard it is to navigate this incredibly tough system. So tell us about how you got here, Alexis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to take the time to share my story today. My name is Alexis Kramer, and I am born and raised in the state of Minnesota. I have lived experience of being homeless. And the reason why I became homeless was because I grew up in foster care twice. And after I aged out of foster care, I was on a Section 8 voucher for 3 years in Hennepin County. And then I ended up getting pregnant with 2 children. So I've had a lot of encounterments with child protection, especially because as a multiracial Black woman, and as a single woman taking care of and raising care of my children all by myself, I continued to be harassed by whether it's law enforcement or CPS workers or anybody that, is a mandatory reporter, that just didn't like the way I parent or how I talk because, I didn't really have a voice and, I was naive and I'm so used to being such a nice person to everybody that I'm so caring and like to help others before I help myself. And because of that reason, I, up until 2 years ago, I allowed other people to watch my children, and CPS became involved again. And my youngest was found with a broken ankle at 2 months. And they accused me of doing it. The foster family that has them now was the other party that was watching my children the week before I brought them in. And I know some people will probably judge and say that Black parents don't know how to parent their children. My thing was, I wasn't raised the way I was supposed to be raised. I grew up with abuse and neglect. So to me, I was just a naive, innocent child that didn't know how to show her emotions or didn't know how to parent, didn't know how to show love. But I love my children. It may not have been the way that the opposite race shows love to their children, but I still love my children, even though I didn't know how to show it. And that's all I want. I want my children back. And I've been fighting for 2 years with child protection to show them that I'm not the person that they're saying I am. I had to educate myself. I'm going to school right now. I've been going to school for a year. I'm going to school to be a child protection attorney because I feel like Black parents are not being represented the way that they should, especially if they are poor. I am poor. I cannot work. I cannot get into housing because of my CPS case. And because I'm being accused and neglected of abusing my 2 beautiful children, I have 4 felony pending charges on my background, which makes it very difficult for anybody to get a job or anybody to get in housing. I'm in a GRH program right now, which is a group residential housing. But because of, the CPS case back then, I lost all my source of income. And then I got evicted from my housing. I cannot get on Section 8 because every time I apply for something that's supposed to help me get back on my feet and get my children back, I get denied because of my CPS case. So, there are many different reasons of why people become homeless. Mine was because of CPS and loss of income. And honestly, now that I look back at it now that I'm educating myself and, I've learned to grow with other people, I've joined a bunch of different organizations, trying to get my voice out there, trying to take out the anger that I've been holding in for so long and trying to show it, because that's who I am. I've been angry growing up, and that's basically all people see. And you know what? Me personally, I don't really care because I'm not going to change who I am or how I act because other people want me to. I've been hurt. I grew up with hurt. I will be honest. I have a lot of anger. There are some things I'm not proud of. I made mistakes, but that's human life. Everybody makes mistakes. And the way that I see it now, after seeing what happened to George Floyd and everything else that's going on, I am proud to say that I'm an activist trying to make change for our world because I don't want what happened to me happen to other parents. I don't want other parents to lose their children and to want to commit suicide because I wanted to commit suicide after they took my children. And that's one thing that CPS does not understand. That's one thing that the criminal justice system does not understand. They are harming the children and the parents together. It's not just one or the other. They're harming the whole family. And from what I see, they like breaking families apart rather than strengthen them and say, okay, if I had a social worker that actually sat down and say, okay, I know you don't understand what's going on right now because I have an intellectual disability. And because of the trauma that I grew up with, there are some things that I do not understand. And because of that, people are telling me I'm stupid. That's how I grew up, was being called stupid growing up. And I had to turn my life around and say, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and let the system define who I am. I'm not going to sit there and let my family define who I am. I'm going to get somewhere with or without their help.
Thank you,
and that's
Alexis.
what I had to do.
Thank you so much. That is a really, really compelling story with a lot of layers. We'll talk a little bit more about the crisis in foster care in this country. Last year, 250,000 plus kids were in the foster care system. And what most people don't understand is that the foster care system is a feeder system for the homeless population. Mm-hmm. So because people leave that system without resources, without a safety net, they end up in the homeless population. And we work really hard with our partners to find solutions once people get there. But so many people like yourself, Alexis, fall through the cracks. And we have to find a way to support you and make sure that those goals that you're trying to achieve, bettering yourself and getting your kids back, are not something you hope for, but a reality. We're going to talk a little bit more about it, but we're going to go to Connie, Connie Jean Conklin, who is in North Carolina. Connie, so tell us a little bit about your story and how you ended up in the situation that you're in right now.
I was raised in a dysfunctional family. It wasn't obvious from the outside. My mother was a malignant narcissist who knew how to put on a good show. And my father he had a violent temper, but he wasn't a bad person. It's just that my sister was born with a birth defect, which is one of the biggest causes of child abuse. They didn't have a clue what to do or how to take care of her. So when she didn't do things when they thought she needed to be able to do them, she was beaten every day from the time she was about a year and a half old. She grew up learning to fight and everybody and everything, and she's very scary to have as an enemy. I was not enough older to intervene when she was being beaten. I was hiding in the back of the closet, and that's where I spent most of my life, is hiding in the back of closets, just trying to stay out of everybody's way and be invisible. When you're a kid, plays well with others is what matters. When you get to high school, academics start being more important. So when I got to high school, I started doing all right in school, and I got a scholarship, $100, which in those days paid for the first term at the community college, junior college in those days, including books, which you got to keep, not like the kids today rent them for a small fortune. Anyways, and I ended up marrying the first guy I could to get away from my parents. I just couldn't take it anymore. My father realized I think he realized at some point beating on my sister was not what was right, but then he'd lose his temper with me, and I had to get out of there the only way I knew. Eventually, I managed to finish college. And I was teaching learning disabled, emotionally disturbed, and I was more ADHD than any of my students. So I kept taking classes as I could and got my master's and went into the mental health field, where I did really well because my memories from those early years was blocked. As long as it was blocked, I was very functional. I had racing thoughts of suicide, didn't know why, but I was very functional. My office mate and I fought for trauma-related disorders to be accepted in the mental health system. They weren't in those days. Anyways, eventually those memories have to come out. They come back. But that's when things started falling apart. I ended up on Social Security disability and eventually ended up here in North Carolina. And I've fought to get my memories back because I wanted to understand what was going on with me. And once my father used to rescue me if anything went wrong in my life. So I wasn't homeless when I was young. I was homeless after he died, because when he died, mother didn't want anything to do with her children anymore, and so I've been homeless numerous times since then, when I just couldn't function, and anyways, it's gotten harder as I get older. Anyways, the person I knew who was DID, he wanted me to start an organization. He wanted me to tell his story. I've done that. I started an organization to educate the community on the issues and struggles of adult survivors of child abuse and trauma-related disorders. I was very touched by Alexis's story because that's what I'm fighting for, is that trauma-related disorders get some treatment and some care. When we leave home, it's like we don't know how to function in the world. We survived in a crazy household, but that doesn't teach you how to get and keep a job. That doesn't teach you how to relate to people and how to keep relationships. It doesn't help you at all in the outside world. And anyways, I've got my memories back, and that's why I signed my posters, Connie, Jean. I have dissociative fugue. dissociative amnesia at times where I find things and don't remember them, but I'm trying, I've got housing at the moment. I'm going to lose it in the fall when the landlord's taxes go up. I can't live in housing for elderly and disabled because of my complex PTSD symptoms. And I've been living in the community. It takes every dime I've got. I only made it through last winter because we had a small fortune in food stamps. Thank goodness. As long as I didn't spend a dime of my cash on food, I could pay the rent, but it's not going to work this year, not with a higher rent, and we're not going to have the higher food stamps, So I don't know what I'm doing in September. I have no idea where I'm going. I'm not one who stays in shelters, and people around here don't either. I've always lived out of a vehicle. My car is too small to sleep in. So I have a decision to try and gather up and trade it in for something big enough to sleep in. Or right now, that's why I'm trying to get involved with HUD and be in the right place at the right time. A lot of the programs they have are not here in Western North Carolina in these mountains. People around here, when they're homeless, they just hide out in the woods. They don't go to shelters. We do have one shelter now in Haywood County. I tried to go there one time and I couldn't even stay long enough to eat a meal because of the noise and chaos. It just triggered me so bad that I had to leave. So they wanted me to stay and I said, there's no way, So.
Well, thank you, Connie. And Alexis, really very compelling stories and so many issues. I don't really almost know where to start. I think what's consistent in both of your stories is the trauma in childhood and in your development. And I think when we think about how homeless programs are developed and the structure, one thing that's really lacking is trauma informed care. And it seems like both of you would have benefited greatly from that. And I think when we talk about the solutions, it's really looking at helping people with the issues that they brought into the system that were there way before they got there. As you said, if you're living in chaos in a household, it's very hard to learn the everyday life skills. And yet that is what we focus on, but we don't focus on what the trauma is behind those. I can't imagine most people being able to make it through dealing with whether or not they're going to be able to keep their kids or whether or not they can retain their memory. Those are things beyond the pale of normal everyday life that you guys have made it through. We had a guest on last show that really talked about, as a woman, some of the day-to-day struggles as a homeless person. Do either one of you want to talk about what happens on a day-to-day basis? Is there any kind of violence or fear or mistreatment that you encountered while you were on the street or even now because of your situation?
It was scary. What was scary to me was I've been beaten up by police who were only supposed to transport me to a psych program that was in another county near here. So when I moved to this county, I was terrified of police. And I've stayed in this county because Jackson County, North Carolina police have so much understanding and empathy, and they are part of my recovery. And I'm going to have to leave this county because they don't seem to have the programs I need. But that is something that makes a big difference. If you feel safe, if I had a safe place to be, there's so much I could do. I can think clearer, if I have some quiet and some calm, and it's safe, and I don't fear what's going on around me.
And so, Alexis, I'm sorry, Connie,
Yeah.
there is a program called Housing First, and that does exist in a lot of communities. So what you're saying is that if someone gave you a safe place to live, that would really help you through everything else, because safety is kind of a paramount issue. So if your community, because you live in a rural community,
Yeah.
if there was Housing First available, you'd probably jump on that, wouldn't you?
Probably, yeah. I'm not familiar with it. I was reading about the supportive permanent
supportive
housing as something that would work for me. But yeah, as long as it's not a lot of chaos, I have some quiet once in a while when I need it, and I feel safe. I mean, yeah.
Sure. Alexis, let's hear about your experience with safety and feeling safe as a woman who's experiencing homelessness.
In Hennepin County, I was homeless for 15 months. So I had to jump from shelter to shelter. I never actually stayed outside on the street, so I don't know what it's like for to be in a tent like some people are in tents right now. But
in Minnesota, where it gets like 100 degrees below zero, right?
Yes. So right now it's like really hot, and there are a lot of people outside. Usually when winter comes, there's still people outside, and we have the city and the police evicting people from parks. I never had that problem when I was homeless. So because of what happened to me, and not feeling safe going from shelter to shelter, because like everything that I was around like triggered me, like brought me back to like my past and everything. So it's just like my mental illness was getting in the way, and it was just like, oh, I can't be around this. I need somewhere where I can feel safe, where I don't have to worry about my triggers coming up, and or my trauma coming up, and trying to figure out what my triggers are that are causing me to like either have panic attacks or having my depression come up. And I still haven't figured that out. I really didn't get diagnosed with my borderline disability until a year ago. And now people are trying to use that against me as like, oh, well, because she doesn't understand that she don't deserve to have her her children back or anything like that, so they try to keep them away from me because I don't understand, and it's just crazy. But when I was homeless, like I was able to work around the system, get the resources that I need, and because I've been living in Hennepin County for 4.5 years, so I basically knew the Hennepin County system. But I didn't get help until I moved to Ramsey County. So now I'm in Ramsey County in a group residential housing program where I share a townhouse with 2 other women. And, lo and behold, our AC system don't work. And it's hot outside now. We got, all of a sudden we got this heat wave coming out and no AC. Everywhere I go, there's not really much AC. So, it's hard to stay cool now. I'm worried I might become homeless again because, I'm having issues with my roommates, and, I'm trying as fast as I can to find my own place, but it's not easy when I don't have income. I feel safe now. I think the only place I felt safe was when Hennepin County put people into hotels during the COVID season, which we're still in COVID, but it's not, I think we're decreasing right now, but that's not to say we might go back up again. So, but yeah, it was the only place where I felt safe. And then, from there, I've just been helping the homeless community and, helping families that are dealing with child protection.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate all of what you shared. Those are very, very tough and compelling situations. But you know, the most important thing is you're pushing through to the best of your ability, and just keep your eyes focused on kind of what happens at the end of the day in the best of the worlds, and that's to have your kids by your side and living in a place of your own. Glad you didn't have to experience the streets. It can be really tough. Connie just shared that she was beaten up by policemen, those that are there to serve and protect. She was actually beaten up by them. So the stories that you see on TV are not fiction. These are people that have lived through it in real life. It does seem like that they're at the end of the day. What both of you are saying is there's just not enough resources out there, and neither one of you. I've heard at times people share this idea that people want to be homeless, and I know that neither of you. I didn't hear anything in your story that says this is something you want to be doing. It's actually the opposite. And if either of you, Connie, do you want to speak to that? What your true desires are, and how little you really have any thoughts about wanting to be in that situation.
Oh no, I don't. I definitely don't want to be homeless. Um, just want a safe place I can live. I want to be able to have a garden. That's like one of the few things that, because that's something I'm very passionate about, is growing things. But other than that, I just want a safe place to be.
Sure.
And a meaning for my life. I've got a therapist right now, through my Medicare program. And she said the other day, well, you're doing so much. I'm so involved in several organizations, not just this one. And cscat.org is mine. I'm real busy with all of those things. And she says, maybe you need to take some time off. I'm going, no. I said, I can't. I said, I have been to hell and back, and I've got to be able to have something come from that. I can't just sit back and say, oh, that was bad. I've got to make it into something positive by doing something with my lived experience and the things I've been through. And anyhow, that's why my organization, I've been saying nonprofit, but we don't have a 501c3. We don't have that kind of money, or any of those kind of things. I've got a fortune. I got a ton of stuff. That's what's going to be hard when I go to move, because we've had thrift stores. My nonprofit had thrift stores, and I've got the more valuable of those things I've kept. And once my mother died, I suddenly had furniture when I'd never had furniture before. So, when I go somewhere, I don't want to just leave that for the landlord. I want to make a difference with it. I want to find someone who can use these things. I've got to have something come from what I've been through. Otherwise, I just can't accept that I've been through it.
Well, Connie, I think something is coming from it. Certainly, the work that you're starting to do with the National Coalition is something. What you've already done with your nonprofit, whether you got a 501c3 or not, you're making a difference. So you're already there, and we thank you very much for that. And Alexis, it sounds like, again, it's a lack of resources, and even though you weren't kind of on the street dealing with homelessness, it sounds like safety was an issue even in the hotel system. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm curious though, because the federal laws and most state laws say that homelessness can't be a reason to take children, but unfortunately many times it is. So the central reason sometimes is veiled in something else, but it's actually really about the fact that someone might be homeless. And is one of the conditions you have to be in permanent housing before you get your kids back?
Yes. With child protection, um, they want people to have permanent housing before they can get their children back. But because of my case, they consider it to be a egregious harm. Which I don't know anything about bones. So I just don't understand why they just, when a child gets hurt, they pin everything on the parent. And I understand that it's the parent's responsibility to, protect and make sure that their children is safe. But when there are other parties, watching the children, and I know I wish I wasn't so trusting with other people. But I needed help. Like I was raising my children all by myself, and I didn't know what to do other than ask for help.
And
Now,
I was going to say, Alexis, one of the challenges in the foster care system is that you don't have anybody that you can call that was part of your life, because once you're emancipated, usually that relationship's over with the foster parent. And unlike other
yeah,
people who call an aunt or a grandmother or something to that effect, that just isn't available to you, is it?
no. My mom's side of the family completely wrote me off after they found out I was pregnant with both my children. They wanted nothing to do with me. They didn't want to help me. And then when the case opened, they were involved for a little bit, and then they were just like, "Don't ask for us to help. We're not going to help you. You have to learn how to do it on your own."
Right.
And and the crazy thing is, like, they knew that I'm not abusive. It's just they knew that I was going through something because my mom passed away before I had my children. So they knew I was still hurting, and that there was a part of me that was not letting go of the past. So that's basically why they walked away and said, you have to learn to do everything on your own.
Well, I am really, my heart is open for kind of your pain. It's really, I can't imagine being in that situation as a parent. But my hope is that somebody hears this, and that there's somebody in either Hennepin or Ramsey County that may be able to reach out and get you some help. And the same thing with Connie. The reason we do this show is we want people to know the reality that this is, it's not some walk in the park. There's really, really deep seated underlying issues that get people here, and all the stereotypes you hear about people are completely untrue, completely divorced from reality, and only your voices can really help people understand that. We have come to the end of the show. It went really fast, didn't it? This is a lot faster than normal. But I really appreciate your voices. We'll get you back again. It seems like we didn't have enough time to unpack everything. But I think the two things that came out most is that people really need help. That it isn't easy being homeless, especially as a woman. We need to address trauma, and we need so much more support for people coming through the foster care system. And at NTH, we'll continue to work on those issues. We hope we continue to have you guys as partners. And I just thank you once again for being able to share your stories. I hope this will change somebody's mind, that they will help provide the resources that can get us to the other side of homelessness. And as we like to say at NTH, that we can bring America home, that we can make sure that people don't have to go through the things that you guys went through in the richest country in the history of the world. Again, we thank you both for being here. We thank people for tuning in. The Voices of Homelessness, produced by the National Coalition for the Homeless, is a podcast that really we hope addresses those underlying issues. You've heard two incredible stories of resilience, creativity, and the real desire to overcome. But people need your help, and we're asking you to help. We thank you so much again for tuning in. This has been the Voices of Homelessness podcast. We hope you'll join us again next month as we address those underlying issues, and you hear it straight from the voices of those who have experienced homelessness.